This is Jesse Ray. Welcome to the Growth House podcast. I am out here, first episode from overseas in Europe, Geneva, Italy, and I'm here with my man, Joe Moffet. What's up, Joe?
Hey, what's up, man? Excited to be here and excited to do a podcast with you overseas. That's wild.
I know, this is the first one, man. I'm super excited. Obviously, internet might be shaky, but we're still going to push through. We're going to make it happen and give some amazing value to the people. So I got your bio. I've listened to a couple of, podcasts that you've been on. And dude, you have a very interesting background. So I want to talk about some of these things that your background, and then we'll deep dive into some of them. And then at the end, we're going to circle up and talk about co-living, because that's exactly how I was able to achieve financial freedom and independence. And that's something that you're very heavily focused on right now. So master's degree, performance psychology, real estate investor, over $5 million in real estate. I believe is you were a bestseller. You were an author as well. Dude, that's tight. We got to dive into that. Peak performance coach for Tony Robbins for almost a decade, and CEO of MasterLIFE by Design. I want to dive into a lot of those things. But first, let's start with real estate investor, man. How'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, it kind of came in a different direction than most people. I've been coaching for over a decade now. We could talk more around that, but it's over the last 5 years, it's been an influx of real estate investors and just really coaching them towards financial freedom. And my clients were getting great results. They were, getting more passive income coming in, traveling the world. And I kind of one day the light bulb went off and I was like, why am I not doing that? Right. And so my wife and I, we kind of chatted around it and we started to make a pivot, and we're like, hey, if we're going to, we make great active income, but true freedom comes from passive income. And so I was like, we're either going to be coaching till the day we die, or we're going to get in the game now and we're going to start, taking the steps necessary, no matter how small they are. Because sometimes the first step is extremely small, right? It's like maybe you just get a budget going, right, before you start your path to financial freedom. But we started just really talking about it, looking at what are our paths and our avenues and opportunities. Luckily, I'm in a bunch of mastermind groups, online communities, which are absolutely important to be a part of. But from there, we started just plugging into opportunities, and then we started creating our own opportunities, which co-living is now, like you said, to focus on that. But it really came through my client success that allowed us to kind of be like, maybe we should start doing that too.
That's awesome. Okay, well then it really started with the coaching. So talk about the coaching. So Tony Robbins, how'd you get, involved with his community and he does so much. So what were you a part of with Tony Robbins?
Yeah, well, it actually started when I got out of the Marine Corps. I got involved in network marketing, and that actually kind of saved me, I guess you could say, because at 23, living in Southern California, single guy, I was everywhere. And so I needed some good mentorship, but it really birthed me into personal development. I don't know about any of you that are listening, but growing up, I didn't have parents that gave me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, or Magic of Thinking Big. And so I started inhaling this content, and then I came across Tony Robbins and his work, and it radically shifted my life, especially in the financial realm, because I was in $30,000 to $40,000 credit card debt for the third time at that point. I like to think I'm an overachiever. I don't do things once or twice. I got to do them 3 times. And so anyway, I was in network marketing, but I was also in business with Tony's son, Jarek. And I used to do, me and my ex at the time would do double dates with him and his now wife, and just really got to know him. And I was at a birthday party in San Diego, and I asked a buddy of his, I'm like, hey, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a coach for Tony Robbins. And it blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know that existed. And I was like, how do I do that? And so did what I had to do, finally got invited to be part of the coaching team and finished top of my class. And that's where I started my coaching journey. Went back, got my master's degree in performance psychology. It's just a piece of paper. Marine Corps paid for it. I'm not a big advocate of college. I don't think, unless it's like a doctor or something like that, that needs that profession needs a degree. I'm like, the college isn't for me, but I think real estate investing is the way to go. But anyway, I started coaching for Tony, and I just literally, I had a ton of time in the saddle. Like I was doing up to 300 calls a month. And so that's a lot of calls. A lot of coaches that start their own business, they don't even do 300 calls a year, let alone a month. And so I really got to build my skill set really quickly. And I had some really great coaches and mentors that helped me along to develop that skill set. And it was pretty cool just being able to help people who are successful, no matter if they're a college student all the way up to someone who's worth, hundreds of millions of dollars, to be able to call them out on their stuff and their limiting beliefs and what's truly holding them back. Most people don't have that voice to speak into people's lives like that, but I did, and it's fun to do.
That's amazing. So were those kind of like the main topics, like helping people with limiting beliefs and then also probably accountability as well?
Yeah, I mean, accountability is huge. If you're the average of the five people you spend time with, and I think a rising tide raises all ships. And so when you have someone that's, and statistically proven too, that if you have to report back to someone, you have up to a 90% chance to succeed because you have that accountability. And so the people who get into coaching and mentorship, when they have that accountability, it just it's someone holding their feet to the fire. Whereas we all know that if you tell yourself, oh yeah, I'll get this done by next week, and if next week comes and things come up and you don't get to it, you kind of be like, you justify. But if you have that accountability, someone's holding you accountable, and there's like either a reward or some pain associated to it, you're like, I gotta get that done, right? It's kind of like a paper at the end that that you got to finish for school and whatnot. It's like you're staying up all night so you can at least pass. And so just being able to hold people accountable, but really, what is the reason why they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Like, what's underneath the surface? A lot of times it's like people are like, you know, I didn't get, I don't know. Let me give a good example here. It's like, why are you so frustrated with your partner? It's not because they didn't pick up crap off the floor, didn't wash the dishes or cook dinner. It's not that. It's because it's something underneath. It's something that, like, oh, I'm not, our household's dirty and people are going to think we're dirty people. It's like, what's underneath of the surface that people talk about? And that's what we get into. That's what we dig into. And the limiting beliefs that show up underneath, when we're able to shift them and transform them and eliminate them, give them a different perspective, that's when you see people just accelerating. And in this case, a lot of times the people I'm coaching towards is really towards financial freedom. We start seeing them get more deals faster. They start being able to, the things that would hold them back in the past are no longer holding them back. They're actually on the next level of their life or in their investment journey. And it's just really cool and fun to see people break through, because everything's 80% psychology, 20% strategy. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And going back to that accountability piece, it's so interesting. Like we'll lie to ourselves, like I'm gonna do this tomorrow. And we'll if we just say it to
Yeah.
ourselves, there's an unlikely chance I will do it. But there's someone else, a third party that we respect and don't want to let them down, so much more likely to actually get it done. And I've been a big proponent of having a coach, being communities, mentorship, etc. for now going on probably 10 years now. So I love that you've always been a part of that. It's been a big part of your life. What's Master Life by Design? If you had to explain what that is to someone, and I love just what the company name is. It's perfect.
Yeah. I really believe that throughout this journey, this game of life, that you have two choices. Either you can float through it and allow life to take you wherever, the wind takes you, right? The challenges, the victories, whatever. Or you can design the life that you want and become a master of it. And so I believe in consciously creating the life that you want, because if one man can have it, you can too. I don't believe there's any limitations unless we come under a one world order or something like that. I think we always have the opportunity to create the life that we want. And so I really believe the first step um, is really creating financial freedom, right? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I just want the money. And it's like, man, it's not about money. In fact, I think it was Jim Carrey who said that, I hope that everyone makes the amount of money that they desire so that they can see that after they buy all the things and do all the fun toys and the experiences, that money's not it. Right. It's the relationships that you create and the brotherhood and the sisterhood that you have. And, honestly, that's like I'm a big proponent in like online communities, because that's what you're building is relationships. And that's what's most important. But people see, oh, I got to make this amount of money so that they can get, the time to do what they want. And that's one thing that I'm a big proponent of: financial freedom and time freedom. But really, that's not what you're after. Because if you have all the money and you have all the time, but you can't go anywhere because you own a business that landlocks you, then what's the point? And so we think we want money, time, and location freedom. And I teach that's kind of like the bait to get people in. But again, as coaching, what's underneath of that? And I focus on two things. And what we're truly after when we're chasing financial freedom and what Master Life by Design is all about is you can have the money, the time, and the location freedom. But if you don't have emotional freedom and mental freedom, you don't have any freedom at all. I don't care how much money you have and how much time you have. If you can't go to Geneva, right, and be able to enjoy and your mind's like thinking, oh, is my business going to fall apart? And you're always stressed and worried. What kind of freedom is that? Right? But if you could be able to travel around with some of your best friends around the world and you just have a peace about it, you're just excited and optimistic about the future, that's true freedom. That's what I call master life by design. When you can have all five of those components, that's when I think life really begins.
I love that, man. Let's dive in a little bit more because I want to dive into that mental and emotional freedom. And I think Brian, our good friend Brian Lubin has been talking about that a lot lately. I think he's finally there. He's like, okay, I got those first three, but sometimes his business drives me crazy because he's a very, a high achiever and always wants, more and more and more in his business, which is amazing. So we've been talking about that a lot lately. So mental freedom, what is that? Dive into that more.
Look, we all have certain thought patterns that we always go to, right? And a lot of times our brain is designed in a way to protect us, not to make us happy, right? We're all wired for survival. And so the only difference is we're not having like saber-tooth tigers chasing us down running for our lives. So now we're having these first world problems where it's like, how do I have the ability to travel around the world and not have to worry about money, right? And so these specific thought patterns we have either hurt us or they help us. And we just get into these patterns of thought that we keep replaying over and over in our mind. In fact, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are recycled. It's very often and I'll do this. I'll say this. That's why it's so healthy to have a mentor, a coach, or an online community, or even attend events where people who are just going to that next level, but they think differently than you, right? You don't want to just get around five people who are more successful than you. You want to get around five people who think differently than you. Because if you could think the way they think, then you'll do what they do, and eventually you'll have what they have. That's why it's so important to get around those people. So whenever I get around high level people, I don't want to know their strategies. Like we're going to talk a little bit around co-living, which is a great strategy, but I want to know, like, why are you investing? Like, how do you think about investing? Like, if I'm sitting here thinking, what if I lose, like, no one wants to invest in my, rent my property. Whereas the other person's like, well, hey, when I think, how much am I going to cash flow and how much freedom will I have once my property's full? Those are two different thought processes, two different thought habits. One's going to lead you down a path of fear because your thoughts stimulate an emotion. And based on your emotion, most of the time, the masses, they live by their emotion, which I don't recommend. You live by principles and habits versus emotions. But when you have that fear emotion, guess what? That person's not going to invest in that opportunity. Whereas this person over here, they're not being optimistic. It's not about being positive or negative. It's about what are the consistent thought habits that you have. And if you think, hey, you know what? What's life going to look like when I get my first property full? What's going to look like when my second property full? What's life going to look like when I have 15 grand a month passively coming in? Single or family, what is that impact? When you think about that, that's going to lead to excitement, optimism, and you're going to move forward where this person is going to stop, and they both have the same opportunity. They just think differently. One doesn't get the cash flow, the other one does, and they travel the world like you're doing. And that is the biggest thing. And if you can master the way you think, and a lot of times for all you listening, what I would say is a quick little exercise for the next 3 days, write down, what do you think about? Think about what you think about, and you'll start seeing your thought habits, and you'll be like, wow, I believe that once you read it. And all of a sudden the game changes for you. and you can start to shift these new beliefs and create new, I don't want to geek out here, but you create new neural pathways in their brain, and all of a sudden that's your new habit of thought, and that's why you see people succeeding. So get around people who think bigger than you and think differently than you, and question their thought habits versus their strategies. Life will transform faster for you.
Mic drop, episode is over. Joe, you just had so much value right there. I'm serious. That was something that I am going to go back and re-listen to, because there was stuff that I was taking notes and writing down. And I think you have another one, because these exercises is something that I love people sharing, because it's amazing to listen to a podcast. Guys, it's amazing to read a book. Nothing's going to happen in your life any differently if you don't go apply what you listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think exercises and taking time and thinking about things and then game planning them out. So you just gave one exercise. What do you think about for 3 days? Write that down. Do you want to dive into the exercise a little bit more? And then also in the back of your head, is there any other exercises that you think would be super beneficial for this growth house community?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Look, I'll keep it simple, right? Because complexity is the enemy of execution, and the whole goal of what you're doing here is to help people move forward. And so write down, what are all the limiting beliefs that you have? What are the limitations that you believe is holding you back? And just write them down, because it's amazing. Instead of, I think of those 60 to 70 thoughts that we have a day, I think about it like a tornado spinning. We're having all these thoughts, and you learn something and it's just all spinning. But if you can write it down, you actually have another modality, right? A sense of visualization to see, wow, I believe all of that. And just gear, do you believe that or not? And if you do, then what I just keep it simple, cross it out, right? And then right next to it, right, what's the opposite belief of that? What is that? It's very simple, but it can be so profound. Like, I'm not good enough at, or maybe it's like, I'm not good at underwriting deals. Cross that out, right? I am excellent at underwriting deals, right? And if you keep repeating that to yourself, the unconscious it learns through repetition, right? That's why we're able to tie our shoes and get so good at it. You just done it a million times. Or, if you're going to the gym and you're so good at lifting, it's like there's certain things that we've done so much that we got good at. And so the way we think is no different. And so the unconscious needs to read that over and over and over to ingrain it, because our unconscious controls 90 to 99% of us, depending on which study you think of or read, excuse me. And so you just want to get that into your unconscious. So it's a simple exercise, but here's the other thing. Here's a third component is you can't battle thoughts with thoughts. You can't say, I'm not good at underwriting in your brain and be like, oh, I'm great at underwriting. You got to speak it. You have to hear yourself speaking what you believe, because you believe it more, right? And so that's where people get affirmations or incantations, but there is power. There's, in the Bible, it says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so, like, people could say words don't matter, but if I said, hey, Jesse, you suck, versus, hey, Jesse, you're the man, you feel different, right? Even if you're the man, but if I told you you sucked, you feel different in the moment. So you got to battle negative thoughts with positive words. There was a study done about how a negative thought is 5 times more powerful than a positive thought. But if you speak the negative thought, it is 10 times more powerful. And so a lot of times when I'm working with a client or working with an investor, I'd like to hear what they say is what they think, right? We all know that. Like, what you think about is what we say. And so, especially if you get some alcohol in you, then it really comes out, but a lot of times I just want to get clients to just shut their mouth. Stop speaking their negative limiting beliefs, because there's power behind that. So there was even a college psychologist who would go to colleges and football and basketball teams and tell them, stop speaking the negative. Just don't even say anything. If you keep your mouth quiet, you'll be more powerful and more successful. So I like to just hear, what are people saying and how do we shift that? So hopefully that helps there.
No, I love that, man. So I usually start off the show by saying, hey, what does Joe's life look like right now? portfolio, real estate, business, etc. We didn't start the show off by that, and I want to circle back to that. We kind of heard how you got into real estate, how you got into coaching with Tony Robbins, etc. Coming out of, you say it was a Marine Corps,
Marine Corps and network marketing. Yep.
and then man, shout out network marketing. I also got involved in network marketing. I feel like it's a gateway drug to entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
like for real.
Yep. Absolutely.
But Joe, what does life look like right now? What is, businesses, portfolio, whatever you want to go with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guy. I'm in GoBundance. I like talking numbers. In fact, the reason why I got into the mastermind at GoBundance was because no one around me talked about money, and not just I'm a numbers guy. I'm a high economic. So anyway, got in. I shared. I got into coaching. Started coaching a lot of real estate investors. The light bulb went off, and my wife and I started investing. We invested in short term rental about 2 hours away from us in the mountains. It's very seasonal, but we also knew our family would utilize it. So I got an amazingly, maybe it was 3.5 years ago. I got into it after I bought the property. So yeah, yeah. So probably 3.5 years ago. I don't know. It just all kind of blends together, right? But we bought that, and I have a beautiful wife and two amazing boys that they're learning through real estate too, and I'll share a little bit about that with co-living. But got into that knowing we would actually use it and Airbnb it, and so that was a learning curve. We chose to personally manage it so we could get that experience. There's also tax benefits if you do it yourself, and so we want to take advantage of that. Um, but then we went in and we invested, multiple five figures into this startup flipping company. That's more of a long term play where, honestly, I think we put anywhere from 50 to 100 grand in, and that could possibly in the next 7 to 10 years turn into $1 million investment. So I thought that was very a smart decision. Um, Plus, I didn't have to do anything. Sometimes that's the best investing. You think that, and I'll counter what I'm about to say later on, but sometimes we think we got to be the one in control. And really, sometimes just being a passive investor, like if Jesse had like amazing deals that had incredible returns, like, and you didn't have to do a thing, just collect money in your mailbox, why wouldn't you put it in a deal like that? So it depends on what your life goals are and where you're going. But we decided to do that. We bought some land, about 2.2 acres, about 45 minutes away from us. We're going to develop that. And it's either going to be a second home that we keep in our family, or we'll Airbnb it, or we might just build and sell and make some good money there. And then where I'm really focused right now, we've invested in some self storage too, that out on the East Coast. But what I'm really excited about now is co living. And I'll tell you before I jump into the co living, because I think this will spark a bigger conversation. Yes, what's life look like for us now? We have two kids, 6 and about to be 4 here in a month exactly. So life's wild. And when you have kids, it's like everything is twice as expensive, takes twice as long, but we love to travel. So my wife and I coach on Monday and Tuesday, my private clients, and that's it. 5 hours a day is open on Monday and Tuesday, and then that's it. The rest of the week is for, travel, pickleball, love playing pickleball, hobbies, lifting, working out, and traveling. Like, we love to travel. We just got back from a trip to Oregon where we took our kids to a resort and a couple other families. We go to Hawaii twice a year. We travel just all around, just because that's what I'm very sentimental. I love like magical moments. That's like a highlight for me. That's a value for me. And so I can't find anything better to spend my money on, other than, like, for me, the kingdom of God, but is experiences, life experience. Dude, like what you're doing, traveling across Europe for an entire month. Like, how many people can say that on their bucket list, on their resume of life, that you've done all these cool, epic things, right? So we love to travel. We do it all the time. That's a big highlight for us. But spending quality time with our friends and family, like I said earlier, relationships are really the key to life. And so we like to spend a lot of time with people, and we have the time freedom and the financial freedom to be able to do both, and the location freedom to be able to do this anywhere in the world. And so we live a great life. We're by no means are we making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or millions a month. We will get there. However, you don't to have financial freedom, you don't need to be making millions. You just need to have more money coming in passively than your expenses, and you're financially free. Some people think you got to be a millionaire, right? So if you're in your beginning stages, oh my gosh, it's so much easier than you think, but you got to think differently to achieve it. And one quick tip is, if you've ever played the game Cash Flow, for those of you listening, that game really shifts your mindset, like from what a small deal is to what a big deal is, to get you out of the rat race and how to create massive wealth. And so how do you do that? And the game gives you a practical application of it. So wrapping up here, so we get to do all that, but we now are focused on co-living. Co-living is really taking a home, a single family home, and putting, now there's a lot more detail to this, but putting more bedrooms and maybe even bathrooms in the home and renting out each room. And I learned from my buddy in GoBundance, his name's Sam Wieger. He taught me. And so I'm going to give him a shout out here. Check him out. He does 5-day challenges all the time. Massive value there. But anyway, I interviewed him on my YouTube
Well,
show.
one
Yeah.
sec. Did you know that I met Sam in person with Brian Lubin on Christmas in
Are
Colombia?
you? Oh yeah, that's right. I saw the story of you guys. That must have been epic. I had a little FOMO right there, a
Epic,
little fear of missing out.
epic.
So
Yeah, dude, it's so crazy how I met Brian and Sam like this. Yeah. Anyways, but I got to give Sam a huge shout out because I've been following him before I became financially free through co-living. Sam was one of those guys that I looked up to as well. So big shout out to
yeah,
him. But yeah, I want to have you continue that story how you got into co-living.
yeah. So Sam and we did a trade where I do his mindset coaching once a month for his community to help people kind of break through the limitations they're kind of dealing with, and we got to be part of his program, and we just followed the system. Right, there is a system. Now, could you do it without a system? Yes. Are you going to lose time and money? More than likely. When you have a system, you're part of an online community that has a system in it for success. What you're really doing is folding time for yourself. Times money you can get back and make more of, time you can never get back. So it's so precious. So anyway, I'm a big proponent of follow systems, and we were following his system. So we found a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house out here in the Boise, Idaho area, and we turned it into an 8-3. Now, what was cool is I had my boys helping. Like on my YouTube channel, I have the whole process documented. I've done a little bit of, I coached Investor Girl Brit a little bit, if you guys don't know her online, and so I saw her like all of her recording content of her like fixing up homes, and I was like, I can either outsource this or I can do it myself with some help, and then I'll have that content I can use forever. So that was the main reason I did the
Okay.
rehab. Um,
Yeah, plug the YouTube. I want to actually follow along that journey.
yeah, it's all Master Life by Design on YouTube. You can check it out. And so the whole journey's there. My boys were knocking down walls, helping kind of scrape drywall, to make it fit evenly and hammer things in. It was so cool. But long days, long nights. But I've realized I'll never do rehab ever again. I will always outsource it, but I got what I needed out of it. But anyway, we turned a 5-2 into an 8-3. We wrapped up. I had a buddy move in right away. And then from there, we now, as of today, we have 6 out of the 8 rooms rented. We're cash flowing after paying all expenses. We're cash flowing $2,000 a month, but we have 2 other rooms available. And so once those are getting filled, hopefully this week, we got some people interested. We got a show, is we should be cash flowing $3,600 a month. And so, and then I'm in the process of refinancing. We should pull out about 150 grand from that deal, and we should be cash flowing about almost 40 grand a year. So we're about a 92% cash on cash return after refi. That's unheard of, right? Like, especially with interest rates where
Where
they are
else are
today.
you getting those numbers, ladies and gentlemen? Where else are you getting those
Yeah,
numbers? People want to have 30,000 units. How about you get 30 co-living homes? You'll have more money than 30,000 units.
exactly. And when I saw this from Sam, I said, in today's market, this is the best strategy for single family homes. I always say it's single family homes with multifamily returns, right? And so, so with that being said, it's like, if let's just say you're making $3,000 a month, you only need 4 homes doing $3,000 a month to have 12 grand a month coming in. How many of you could live off of 12 grand a month and only have to worry about 4 properties? Instead of, I know people out there, they're kind of, no disrespect to bigger pockets, but they're running the bigger pockets method with $100 a door, and they got 30 homes just to make, like 3 grand a month. And so it's like, what's easier? So anyway, I really enjoy that model. I feel like if it was in the cash flow game, it would be a card in between the small deal and the big deal. It's like there's no middle deal, but I would say it's in between there because you're getting like commercial returns on a single family home, and it's a way better entry, easier entry point. So yeah.
So true, man. I always say for co-living that it's single family appreciation with multifamily returns, which I think is pretty simple or similar to what you
Yep.
just said.
Spot on.
So man, I'm a huge believer in co-living. That's why I'm able to actually travel the world. That's my main source of income to live my lifestyle is through co-living. So
Love it, man.
love it, and we can kind of nerd out for a couple minutes on this topic because I think people want to know, when did you buy that place in Boise?
We closed on January 12th, 2024, and then I rehabbed. It took about 2 months. By April 1st, it was ready, marketing, and then here's one thing I will say: the numbers sound great, but don't get me wrong, there's always challenges, right? There's always challenges in real estate, anything that you do. And so for me, we had to carry for over just about 2 months. We had to carry, holding costs, the mortgage, and the utilities of it. So that kind of gets factored in. But I'll tell you, once you're cash flowing and you have that freedom like you do, Jesse, I mean, like, it's all worth the fight, right? We got to fight. Anything you want good in life, you have to fight for it. But so many times people give up just at the first glance or like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And it's like the first time you get punched in the mouth, if you quit and run away, like, you got to understand, real estate's a fight. Business is a fight. Those that are strongest and that have the most endurance usually are the ones that you're watching in 5 years on Instagram traveling the world like you're doing, right? So you get to choose who you want to be. I chose to fight, and I will say, I'll leave it with this: is I share the challenges too, because I don't want to ever paint a false illusion that of like, oh, there's no challenges, life's amazing. That's not true. I have challenges just like all of you out there that are listening. Me and Jesse might just be 1, 2, or 3 steps ahead of you. But again, if you think the way we think and do what we do, you'll have what we have, and you'll be, traveling the world with Jesse and the whole crew here soon. So
I would actually love to talk about some challenges because I think people don't talk about that. Like, you on my Instagram, and as like very transparent as I am, I still look at it. I'm like, this is a highlight reel. Like I don't think people want to see pictures of like when my ceiling caved in or yesterday. I mean, it is like it's a catch-22 because I'm literally at Nikki Beach in Monaco, poolside with my what I have. I think I had like a mojito, and I'm getting a text saying your AC unit goes out. That's 8 grand. I'm like, well, that wasn't budgeted, within the month of July. But guess what? There's nothing I can do about it now. So I got to have a good mindset first, which I think most people, when they have these challenges come up, they're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I'm on the other side of the world. So let me actually first just breathe and be like, okay, $8,000 is not, it's a good amount of money,
yeah,
right? And so I was like, all right, you know what? I thank God I have a house manager in place. Thank God I got this. I just remember everything I'm grateful for. But then also it's like, okay, how do we counterbalance these things that happen? So 8 grand, and I just want to shout out co-living again, because most people, that's a whole year of cash flow.
or
If
more.
you're making a couple $100 a month, that's a multiple years of cash flow gone.
Yeah.
For you and I, for one of my properties, it cash flows like $4,500. So that's like 2 months of cash flow. So, guys, just want to say co-living is amazing again. Is there anything else that you would say that has been a challenge with co-living?
I mean, you know, I'll say this before I jump into that. We were talking about action. Most of the time, I love Alex Hermosi's quote. I think it was, confidence comes from taking action. And if I would rather go do something and learn it and fail at it than reading every book around, the whole entire topic, wasting years and having a good theory. There's so many people out there, they're book rich, but they're action poor, right? And it's like, there's one thing you could see that it's common through all successful people is they're the ones that take action first. Now, don't get me wrong, you got to have some understanding because you don't want to waste time or money learning. So there's this delicate, I'll call it a tension, where you got to take action, but you got to have to understand what you're doing. So there's like, go get 80% of the information, start applying it, and you'll accelerate. um so getting back to your question is like, I learned by doing. And one of the things, the property is about 20-30 minutes from us, depending on traffic. And I was going down every showing. I didn't want my wife to walk the house alone with a guy or anything like that. So I would go down. And after a while, I was like, man, why am I doing this? And I'm not even living there. So, and that, yes, we are self-managing it. Why? Because again, we want to learn the ins and outs of this. What are the challenges that come up? How do we handle certain things? Eventually we're going to hand the reins off, but I always like to know how to do it myself first. But I started thinking, like, why not have one of my tenants be the one that shows the property? I'll give them a $50 discount per month for showing the property because they're going to be living with the person. And now that saves me time, energy, probably saves me well over $50 in gas. And that person in the house can say, what do you think? We do a phone interview, but what do you think? And so that, I wouldn't have learned that unless I started having to go through that challenge first, right? But then there's people, you learn that the biggest thing for us, and this is big, like I learned this from my pastor in our church, is like, we're all about culture. And so I'm like, man, I want an epic culture in my house. I don't want people that are just complainers and they have a problem to pick with everyone and they're just OCD about everything. It's like, I want a culture of people that are really cool, fun to get along with. And so we've turned money down so that we could have a great culture. Someone doesn't fit our culture, they're not in. So, but that's the challenge. It's, again, that's money out of our pocket because we're protecting the culture. Because here's the thought process: I'd rather have long-term clients that all get along, and I have mental freedom. Right? We talked about that earlier. Mental freedom for the long run than the short-term income with the problems coming later. And that's just, again, a different way of thinking. Some people, they don't care. They're like, I'll deal with it when it deals with it. That's their thought process. But I don't want to be the guy when me and my wife and kids are in Hawaii having this, 4 phone calls from roommates saying someone didn't take out the trash. Like, I don't know. Right. So anyway, culture is big, but the challenges that we faced, we haven't faced a ton, but only because Sam did a great job in the system that we implemented, but we're also adopting some of the things Sam shared didn't work. And we had to pivot ourselves. This is where thinking creatively has to happen. For 2 months, we weren't really getting many people reaching out. So me and my wife, we had to test pictures. We had to test different copy on our ad. I had her do it on her Facebook. Most people might reach out to a beautiful girl than maybe me, And so we just tested. And that's a part of entrepreneurship is you have to test, you have to try. And the biggest thing I always tell clients, whether they succeed or lose, is, did you take your swing? And we are taking our swing. And if we strike out, I can live with that the rest of my life. At least I took my swing. But I didn't want to be the guy who said, what if I would have tried that real estate thing? What if I would have went to that event? What if I would have jumped into that online community? What could have happened to my life? Where could I be by now? I don't ever want to do that. So take your swing. When you get an opportunity to invest in a deal, to go to an event, like I saw you, Jesse, the events you put on look epic. I was kind of, again, FOMO for me not being there. I was like, I want to be there. But if you guys want to go to his event or, when he starts an online community, jump in, take your swing. Money comes and goes, time doesn't. So hope that helps.
So good. Yeah, what I always talk about is mentors or mistakes. You get to choose. And I'll tell you, mentors are a lot, lot less expensive than mistakes. But like you said, man, like I think so many people, especially starting off, want that home run deal. Most likely, you're not going to have that home run deal. Just get your feet wet, jump in, dive in. As we wrap up real quick, I do want to just ask last question: what were the numbers on that co-living home? Because a lot of people say you can't get those type of cash flow numbers in today's market, but I want Joe to demystify that right now.
Yeah. So I'll say this. do whatever it takes to get into the deal, and you'll with a game plan on how you're going to make it work for you as you're moving forward. And what I mean by that is we bought the deal for about 412,000. Um, so we did a DSCR loan. So those of you that don't know what that means, it's a debt coverage service ratio loan. So they basically say how much is the mortgage and then how much can rents be. And if the rents in the community, long term and sometimes short term rentals, depending, comps, if they match, we can loan on it. You're going to have to put 20% down, right? Even if you want traditional route, you're going to have to do that. The only way you can get around that is if it's 50 miles away and you actually use it as a second home. But I'm not an attorney or financial person, so don't take my advice. So for me, we actually, when we got our appraisal, what happened was the house came back worth more, which was great. But the rental comps were, instead of a 5.2, we got 3.2 comps. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Another challenge. And it was because in the basement, they didn't have egress windows. Egress windows are simply windows that meet a certain code from the floor and are a certain size in case there's a fire, people can get out, right? And so time was ticking. And so the only solution was to put 30% down. So I had to put like 130K down and then all the rehab costs, which was around 60 to 70 grand. So that drained a lot of liquidity from us. But like I said, we're in for just under 200K. We're going to get about 150 back. So we're going to be in the deal for 40, 45, 50 grand max. And so we're going to be getting $3,600 a month here as we're full. And if you think 3,600 times 12, and now I know there's vacancy, but that's $43,000 a year, right?
I was just doing that math. You're gonna make all that money back in like 4 years, I
Yeah,
guess.
in 1 year. So now I got people in my mastermind that are saying, yeah, I'll throw 100K into your next deal. I got a couple, like 2 or 3 other people like, hey, I want to jump in. And here's why. Because I have proof of concept. I did it all. If I leverage an investor's money out of the gate, I didn't do any of the rehab. I didn't know any of the numbers hardly except for underwriting. People would say, that's great returns. They're compelling, but how can I know you're going to get those returns from me? I can say because I did it first. And someone asked me a question the other day. Um, One of my private clients, he owns a fencing company in Chicago, very successful, been working together for like 7 years. And I've been urging him to get into passive income investment so he can have his freedom. And anyway, he's like, I can invest all in REITs, but last time I invested in a REIT, I lost almost 80% of my money. What do I do? And I told him, I was like, I like to invest in things that I have control over. Now, earlier I said you can invest with another investor and be passive and collect mailbox money, which is true. My number one rule in coaching is know thyself. And if you don't know how you're wired, then you don't know which one to go with. But I personally like to have control. And so I wanted to do this on my own. And now that I can prove this concept, me and my wife can prove it. Now people are, as we're looking at our second property right now, and I'm getting a quote because I won't do the rehab myself. I'm going to play those numbers and talk to my investors. And even if I do all that work and I manage all that, but I can cash flow $2,000 a month and I didn't have to come out of pocket, that's an infinite return for me. Right. So the numbers in the house, almost like a 90 to almost 100% cash on cash return. This next deal, if I use an investor, that's going to be an infinite return because I have no money in the game. So there's a way that you can win in real estate with no money down. But if you don't have any money, the first thing I would say, the best way is go give your time and energy to someone and do the property management, do the underwriting, do whatever you can and learn the game. Do it for 2 to 3 deals with them. Maybe you get a small piece, maybe you don't. It doesn't matter. The knowledge is experience. And then deal 3, you could say, hey, I've done these 3 deals, leveraging the credibility of the people that you helped. And then you can leverage investors to say, hey, I got an incredible deal with a 92% cash on cash return. Are you in? They're going to say, duh. So anyway, there's my numbers.
So good, Joe. Joe, how do people reach out to you, man?
You can check me out on YouTube on MasterLIFE by Design on our YouTube channel. You can get at me on Instagram, the Joe Moffet, and Facebook also. And then if you want to check out masterlifebydesign.com, I help people, coach people through the limitations around becoming financially free in their mind. And yeah, whatever I can do to support and rock and roll.
Love it. Last question. People are going to reach out, but no one's going to reach out and say, "Can I pick your brain?" Because if they do, let me know and I'm going to cancel them from Growth House. So when people reach out, we want to provide value. You spent 45 minutes with us. You were supposed to go to the gym. You pushed that back for our community. So I want you to tell me and also our audience, what kind of value can someone provide you when they reach out besides saying, "Hey, can I pick your brain?"
just just sharing who, what I'm about, who I am with people that they think would align with what I'm all about, financial freedom, just like all of you. But really want to help with the mental and emotional side. So anyone that could use coaching um, or thinks that my content that I put out there could be a benefit to them and said in a different way than maybe some other people, then great. The goal is to help people. But that would probably be the best. Following and sharing the content would be the best. Or if you want to bring deal or capital, that could work too. So
There you go. See, you have multiple ways, guys. Joe, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited to actually connect in person. You're going to be there for the Tulum Mastermind with the Action
I
Academy?
won't be there. I may hit the next
Oh,
one,
dude.
unfortunately.
Oh,
I know
man.
there's things going on, and I just got asked to speak in Tennessee in like a month or two, but I had to I have coaches that work for me, so I'm sending one of my coaches to do the speaking gig and talk about coaching and all.
Mhm.
But we'll have to plan something else. But if you're ever in Boise, come on it through. Let me know.
For sure, man. Well, I appreciate you again, and we'll talk
Sounds
soon.
good, brother. Thanks for having me.